Welcome to another episode of the Impact Driven Brand Series. Welcome to another episode of the Impact Driven Brand Series. Here is where we uncover the layers of systemic racism, the institution of white supremacy, and its linkage to the intergenerational trauma experienced by those of us in the Black community. We explore this complex web and its effects on our mindset, its effects on our money, as well as the lack of representation in positions of power. But we don't just focus on the problem. We're all about fostering solutions. And here at the Impact Driven Brand, we believe in impact entrepreneurship. So that's using your personal values, your experience and expertise to create a business and a brand that drives change in a way that dismantles systemic racism and advances the Black community. Now, this show is sponsored by the Impact Driven Brand Agency. We work with entrepreneurs and small business owners to build beautiful brands that run on autopilot. So think of us as your partners in purpose. The majority of our clients hire us when they're ready to redefine their brand and increase their visibility, right? So one of the things that our clients have expressed that they appreciate the most is our attention to detail when it comes to actually strengthening the infrastructure of their business. So we believe in a 360-degree impact. It's about you making an impact in your community, but you too are a part of that community, right? So you must be supported in a way that allows you to show up, operate at your most optimal level as the CEO and owner of your business. And that can be very difficult to do when you're wrapped up in the minuscule tasks of the back end of your business, right? So that's where our agency really takes the load off for our clients, and everything that we do, that is what most of our clients say that they're most grateful for. Out of everything that we do, that's the part. It's strengthening that infrastructure and really putting some structure in place within the business so that they're operating like the CEO that they are. So if this sounds like you, we invite you to complete the Impact Brand Assessment, get our team's eyes on your business, and let's go. Let's get to work and let's create something incredible together. So joining me in today's discussion is our special guest, Miss Taryn Ferrer, better known as T Money. Taryn is the energetic, passionate, and resilient founder and CEO of Money Honey LLC. As a wealth coach, she teaches ambitious female CEOs and professional women how to build the financial confidence to make millions. She does this by energetically healing your relationship with money. Hello, it starts with the mindset, yes, as well as elevated money management and mindset work. She is on a mission to lead women in building wealth so that they can positively impact the world and have fun while doing it. So when we talk about an impact brand, y'all, someone who took their values, their mission, their education and expertise and created a personal brand of impact, this right here is what it looks like. So Taryn, thank you so much for being here today. It's truly an honor to have you here. And I would just love to know, how are you doing today? How are you doing after coming back from Ghana? Tell us about that.
Yes. First of all, I'm so excited to be here, and just hearing you describe what an impact driven brand is. I felt the goosebumps and the tinglies and the excitement just all over my body because it's so important, right? And when we can get into that, that's when we can really make the work happen. And of course, you're talking about what I do. The alignment is a beautiful thing. And so I'm just so excited to be here. I'm doing well. And Ghana was and is everything. I would love to still be there right now. So it was just a beautiful experience. It was my first time in Africa as well. And so there's just something powerful about that, being a Black American. It's powerful on so many levels to see us everywhere, right? I think I love to tell my friends as I've been coming back from the trip, I was like, it starts on your flight directly to, right? So on our flight that we boarded from New York to Accra, Black people everywhere. All right, it was us, all classes of the plane. I walked in, I said, I'm here. This is that's what it started. So to be surrounded by so much melanin, so much culture, so much history, just richness of all of it for just those 2 weeks that I was there was it was a beautiful thing. It was life-changing. That trip was definitely life-changing. I come back here with so much, feeling there's so much more for me to do, right? Especially when we talk about impact, and just so much a different perspective. I see things so much differently than I did before. So yeah.
I bet. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you experienced that. And we were talking before we actually started recording about how in my opinion, I believe every Black American should experience that. And that is something that I am working on for myself and my family as well. Just starting with the research. You can start there, everyone.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be this grandiose plan or picture. Like, you can just start with doing some research. What are the necessary steps? Like, just start there.
Yeah, exactly. And, the other thing I mentioned too is like, there might be some like vaccines that you have to get. There might be some like visa paperwork. It's all worth it. Like, as soon as you step foot into the country, into the place, like the energy, just the vibe, like you're going to be like, all right, all of that, as annoying as it may have been, like all of it was worth it. So I highly recommend it. And yeah, start where you can. Just start researching, start building that knowledge base. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes. And that is what, that's really what our brand is all about, is just taking a look at the world around us, because there are so many different things that impact our life, our career on a daily basis that we are aware of. And there are some things that are impacting us that we're not aware of. Those subconscious limiting beliefs that can get in the way of us really exploring ourselves and exploring the world around us. And so, especially living in the United States corporation, I don't even switching up my language when I talk about it now, because it literally is not called United States of America anymore. We are United States Corporation. So just that alone, I feel like something that everyone living in this nest that we live in should ponder on and ask questions and really just reassess like how we're operating, the lens that we see through when it comes to our money, our mindset, and just what is controlling our livelihood. So, oh my goodness, I want to start. You're actually the first one I'm trying this on. I want to start our podcast this week with reading a client's testimonial from your website. This is so beautiful, y'all. Please listen. And I can't wait for you to expand upon this. But your client says, through working with Taryn, I found that I was using money to prove my worth to others. I'm going to read that again, because I know you listening and watching, I know you can relate to this. I related to this. This is so powerful. She said, through working with Taryn, I found that I was using money to prove my worth to others. Raise your hand if this is you, or this was you in the past, if you feel like this is something that, and be honest with yourself, something that you do. Taryn, can you expand upon this revelation by your client and just explain, like, what was that process? Like, what did that look like prior to her revelation? And how did you help her? And how is she now helping herself after working with you?
Yeah, just as soon as you read that line right there, I was like, I started to feel the emotion, because yes, like the beautiful thing I think about the work that we do around money is that it reveals things to you that you may not have been aware of when it comes to just how you operate with money, and even just some of the beliefs that you have. Like, often it's one of those things where like people will come to me for one thing, right? Oh, I want to learn how to like prepare to start investing. I want to buy a house. I want to budget, all of these things, right? And then what we discover is how you value, like what you actually value, right? I tell people all the time, I'm like, you can show me your bank statement and I can tell you the things that you value the most. And if that aligns with what you say you value, beautiful. Love that for you, right? And if it doesn't, then we got some work to do, right? Like, we need to align our spending with what it is that we say we desire. And so, yeah, for this client, she was in this space just feeling like I'm at this certain job. I feel like I need to prove that I'm making this amount of money, right? And she was just doing that naturally. Like, this is just what I'm spending on, all of these things, right? And then she, as we were doing some exercises around figuring out what her, like, what I call rich bitch vision is, right? And what her vision for her life is, what she truly desires, she realized that she didn't desire half the things that she was spending her money on, that she was like spending the most of her money on, I'll say, right? And so as we were doing that work, that inner work around, her relationship with money, she like, there was one session where she was like, I'm trying to prove my worth here. And she's like, it ties back to, proving my worth to people around me, you know, as I was growing up, like proving that I, you know, deserved to be there in those spaces, proving it to my parents, right? And those things that we don't even think are related to money, they show in the way that we spend later down the line, or, you know, even currently. And so once she did realize, okay, this is what I've been, you know, really spending it on, it was like the switch just flipped for her. And so she was like, okay, like, this is like what I really want to do is travel, right? Like, I've been wanting to take this trip for so long, but I was thinking I needed to spend all this money on, you know, these like clothes and dinners and things instead. And so she really got intentional with like her savings, and she paid for the trip. And I remember that message as well. She was like, T-Money, I did it. Like, I finally booked it. And like, I'm so excited. And then get to see the pictures after that of her there, and just hear the stories of her really enjoying it. You know, it's like after that, it was like the confidence, right? The confidence changed. She met that goal, right? She was really aligned to it. That was something that she deeply desired. And so she was willing to do the work to make it happen. And, you know, she went on that first trip. She's booking other ones. She's like really in this space of like, okay, like I did that shit. Like I did it. And so now I can reach the next goal. Now I can say no if I don't want to spend my money on this. You know, I can do it a different way. And that's the work that I love to do. Like, that's the type of transformation I love to see in clients, like feeling like you have to spend your money a certain way to please people, or just not even have boundaries around, you know, how you spend your money, to then taking it to the next level and like really taking ownership and creating that life that you really want to live. So, yeah.
I love that so much. And I think it's so beautiful that in your work with her, your philosophy resonated with her at some point, where you're like, listen, you need to align your spending with what it is that you say you desire. So it's like taking that inventory and saying, hey, okay, this is what you've been spending for the last 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. This is what you've been spending your money on. Can you look at this from a different perspective and say, is this really a priority for me? So I love that she had that epiphany, and that you were able to help her to come to the realization that, number one, she was exhibiting a behavior that she didn't even know that she was exhibiting. I mean, that right there can be a mind boggle. It's like, no, of course I want to save money. Of course I want to be traveling the world. Everything that I feel like I'm doing right now is in alignment with where I want to go. But when you really peel back the layers and you think about it, it's like that subconscious mind is very tricky. And if you don't do the work consistently, see that in your life, in your behaviors, in the patterns that are showing up in your life, then you're going to just be on autopilot thinking, I'm in alignment, spending my money or saving my money in a way that, you know, aligns with what I value. But here was an instance where someone, you know, clearly realized that on one end, yes, this is what I value. And on this end, it's like, do I really? So I love that in your work, you know, with your client, specifically this client, this testimonial really stood out. You know, it wasn't about what she was doing per se. It was about who she was being, how she was showing up in her life as it relates to what she was doing with her finance. It just goes to show how powerful mind science and mindset work and mental health can really be, and how that can just transform your life in ways that you don't even realize. And it can be so subtle too. Something like her booking a trip and saying, oh, I did that. Okay, I can do it again. You know, I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves to do the thing. And sometimes it's just about taking a step back, or seeking the support that you need to sit with what you've already been doing and shift that. Such a beautiful transformation story. I love that. So what actually led you into this work? Is there anything in your life, or everything in your life, that really contributes to your passion and your mission behind helping women to build wealth?
Yeah, there's a few things. I think initially, you know, as we were just talking, right, there's layers that you end up discovering as you go on, right? So a big part of my story is that I did the thing that everybody like talks about when it comes to entrepreneurship. They're like, yeah, so I'm going to replace my income with my business, and then I'm going to leave corporate, and then I'm going to live happily ever after, right? So I did that. I was working in corporate America. I left it at the age of 23 because I replaced my income in under a year. And I was like, okay, I'm set. I don't got to go back to that no more. Free at last. I am free at last. Things were okay for a few months until I was broke. And so that my business did not maintain the same level of income production that it did. That helped me to leave, right? And then I was broke and I was like, well, okay, we got to find ways to make more money. And so I did start to kind of navigate that season. And then I had a couple of things, like couple of health things happen back to back. I have sickle cell anemia. And so occasionally I'll have crises and things like that. And so I had a pretty bad one, and that was combined with pneumonia. I was not able to like really stand on my feet for more than like 5 minutes at a time for 2 months. And so that really shifted my mindset around like, okay, I need to figure out something to do business-wise that's going to bring in something that's a bit more passive, right? And so that led me into starting another business, and that started the flow of it, right? Part of it was my way of navigating seemingly having it all, right? Losing it all, and then needing to build it back up. And in that time, that's when I started to do the mindset work. So that was probably around 2017, 2016, 2017 is when I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing some of this. I skipped all the mindset prompts in the books. I'm going to go ahead and start to do those now. And as I started to do that work and started to work on my own finances, that's really what inspired me. And that's how people started to ask me about it. Like I raised my credit score 240 points. I paid off like $20,000 in debt in a couple of years, just different things like that. And I started, so travel is a big thing for me personally. And in 2018, I set the goal of like traveling every 3 to 4 months. And I ended up traveling 9 times that year. But like, that was what started it. It was like, this is something that means so much to me. And so I'm going to start really intentionally working towards this goal. And since I started that goal, like, I travel all the time now. It's to the point where my friends or family are often like, okay, question number 1, are you in the country? And question 2, like, are you available? That was kind of what got me started. Then as I started to do more of the inner work myself, right, I knew it was happening, but like I was finally able to realize I had grown up in a bit of a financially abusive environment. And so finances were a point of contention. They were used as manipulation. It was intense, to say the least. And it also carried into the way that I was even treated in my young adulthood, right? I had moments where I had like, an agreement with my parents that like they'll help with what's left of the tuition that's not covered by financial aid and student loans and all of that. And they'll help with housing. I got to take care of everything else, right? I had 2 separate situations where an eviction notice was placed on my door, and I had roommate. I was not told that the rent wasn't being paid. And then when I asked about it, I was told I was ungrateful. I was blamed for the situation, so on and so forth, right? And that led into another situation in which my tuition had stopped being paid. And my university came at me with a lawsuit. I didn't know because all of my mail was going to that other house that I did not live in anymore because I had moved out. And so, and again, I'm receiving this summons at my door, and that was in 2015. And I was like, what do I do with this? Like, what's happening? I asked questions about that. Again, I'm told I'm ungrateful. I'm told I should have known. I'm blamed for it. All of these things, right? And so I get to this, I realize also that like a reason why I do what I'm doing is that's the other part of it. And then the third is that as business owner, as a Black person who's a business owner, as a woman who's a business owner, I was struggling to get funding once once I needed it to help to scale another business. I would talk to the lender of the bank on the phone, right? And they're like, yeah, you sound great. Come into the office. Immediately they see what I look like. All of a sudden, I'm not qualified. And this didn't happen just once. This happened on 5 separate occasions. And so I was like, yeah, I don't want women to keep experiencing this. I need us to start to get our money together. I don't want it to be a situation where like a man is telling me what I can and can't do with money or using it to keep me around or whatever. I don't want it to be a situation where we can't pursue our dreams or what we want to do because whoever is telling us we don't have access to this capital because of what we look like. And the other part of it, and like the positive part of it, is I saw what getting my finances together did for my life. Like, it opened so many doors, right? It allowed me to start to reach my dreams of traveling, like being able to invest in others, like being able to donate to, causes that really mean a lot to me. Just having choices, right? I've seen the way that it really transformed my life. And I'm like, I want women to have this. Like, why do we not have this? Why are we not doing this? So all of those things really contributed to getting into the work that I do today.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. And I want to unpack that a little bit because it's a great segue into the next question too, because we're talking about limiting beliefs, right? When you talk about your experience with the universities, like, first of all, you listening, you watching, I just want you to know that trauma is real and it comes in so many different forms. And I feel like you can weigh one trauma over the other, but really, when you think about how it actually continues to affect and impact your life and your mindset and your adulthood, or not even your adulthood, in your life, because we may have childhood traumas, but we also have adulthood traumas that affect us that may have occurred like last week, may have occurred like yesterday. So I think it's important for us to really put into context like what trauma actually looks like and the many forms that it takes. When you think about trauma traditionally from an academic perspective, the first thing that many of us will probably think of is like someone who was a war veteran who was experiencing PTSD, someone who, even children growing up inner cities where a lot of violence occurred and seeing certain things happen right in front of their face, that's a trauma. Even mothers, and Black women specifically in the healthcare system, experiencing these traumas when it comes to healthcare, losing children. I literally remember hearing a story, I think it was last week. Actually, it happened in Georgia where a baby was decapitated by the doctor during a birth. So when you think about trauma, it's like, that's right in your face. That's up close, like that's in your face. But there are also other forms of trauma, things that we've experienced that you can just recall, like yesterday, like you just did, Taryn. That experience, going through that with the university, like we have all these little bucket experiences in our mind, in our brains, in our subconscious, and it can come up in different ways and manifest in many different ways. So when you talk about limiting beliefs, and you were talking about your experience with the university, and you said that you were told that you were ungrateful for even bringing up the situation around your housing and what has happened. You were just kind of lumped into, I guess, this group of people who weren't handling their responsibilities. And it's just, I can totally relate to that, especially when you're talking about dealing with white institutions, colleges and universities, the nerve of you to, this student. I mean, the question is, was there any type of intervention before that was like the course of action that they felt like they needed to take? Like, did anyone call me, email me, say, let's sit down, let's try to work this out? Because I feel like there are some of our white counterparts get that treatment. That's where that privilege shows its face. But others of us, it's just, we normalize this stuff. It's like, oh, yeah, I have this much in student loans. This is what it is. I'm going to have this huge bill that I'm going to have to pay every month.
Right.
For student loans, and it's just, if you can unpack that a little bit as far as like that experience with the university lumping you into that group, and then also that experience with them suing you, like literally suing you. Like,
yeah, so there's a few things with that. One, I should clarify, I had already graduated. So this had happened about 2 years after I graduated. I was being sued for back tuition. My parents didn't finish paying the tuition. Yes. So when I had called with my dad in particular to talk about that, he's the one who told me that, like, I was ungrateful, I should have known, blamed me for all of those things, right? So there was that. Now, my next call was to the university, to which I was like, what's happening? Like, how did we get here? I had no idea. My address is updated in the alumni network. Like, why was I not contacted any other way? And so then they're like, well, we tried to contact you at the number and address provided. To which I was like, if you pay attention to the name in which you're sending that to, that's not me. That's clearly like a parent, guardian, family member, whatever, right? So I was like, I don't live there. And that's also not me. So like, you're reaching out to this person that isn't me. So I was not informed, right? And then they're like, yeah, we also tried to call. And I'm like, okay, that was the house number of the other person, like that was my dad's number. That wasn't, again, that's still not me. And they're like, like we had attempted to call and we sent those mail communications, like there's not much else we can do. I was like, so what do you do if somebody for whatever reason, is not contacting those people anymore? Like you're just kind of automatically sending stuff out. You're not paying attention to who you're sending it to. You're not attempting any other form of communication. It's just like, oh, well, this is just like, it's just the policy. This is just how it goes. That's who we sent it to. We tried to tell you. That's all. Good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor is kind of how that ended. So I was angry. I was upset. Because, and the other part too, right, is that because of especially the relationship I had with my dad at that time, like, we weren't really on the best of speaking terms and everything. So I wasn't spending time over there. I wasn't going. I mean, clearly, because like I get right. Yeah. I get sued. You tell me good luck. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not hanging out over there. But I also thought that my diploma had gotten sent there, and it did not. So my diploma was still at the university, and I had no idea. I thought it just got sent there, and that's just where it was. I hadn't picked it up, was whatever. But no. And it's like, it's one of those things where you're young. You don't know what you know, even just a few years. Yeah. Like, even just a few years later, if it were a different situation, I probably would have made sure that all of the communication was then coming to me. I would have been sent the diploma and stuff directly, because if I hadn't received it, I probably would have been like, what's going on at a certain point, But I just didn't think anything of it. I hopped into full-time work and I was like, okay, like I gotta
keep moving, gotta keep pushing.
Yeah, gotta too.
And that's interesting because that's like when I think about how much I can relate to that story, going through college, and for me, going through college while also being a mother. I was 24 when I had my first child, my oldest son, and you just think about the level of support that is needed for us as Black Americans, but also specifically Black women. And it's just interesting because I can definitely relate when it comes to like feeling like you should have had a different level of support, especially when it comes to like the financial piece around university and the cost of college and just really like managing your life as a new adult. I feel like when we turn 18, the parents are like, oh, you're 18, automatically you got this switch that clicks on and you should be the best adult. And
you got it.
It's not about judgment or pointing the finger at our parents. Okay, I just want to say that for the record, parents.
Yeah, just in case. Don't come for us today.
What we're really doing here is just trying to peel back the layers and explore, like, not only our lives, but your lives too. Like, we understand that this pattern didn't just start with you, parents.
Mm-hmm. And generational.
Yes, we give you grace. And I pray that my children give me grace, because as much as we feel like we are doing our very best and we are striving to do the very best for ourselves, for our families, like there's going to be moments where we drop the ball or have dropped the ball. It's just, especially as, an African American, like you have to give yourself grace when you think about the effort and the strategy that was put into the system that we live in and for it to work against us in many ways.
Yeah.
So I feel like recognizing that is important, and also doing the work to shift that narrative, shift those patterns that we've been just kind of existing in for generations. So I think it's interesting that you said, your dad is like, hey, oh, you're getting sued. Okay, listen, I don't know what to tell you. I can relate to that when it comes to, the boatload of student loans that I now have, saying, I'm going to continue through. I'm going to get to this finish line and I'm going to make it count. I don't care how much I have to rack up. And it's like, if I could do it all over again, even though I lead with a no regret perspective, but if I could do it all over again, maybe I would have, with my income that I was making at the time, invested in a coach like T-Money, to help me along that journey. And this is even, I think, like an opportunity for another target audience for you, like parents, think about investing in your children in different ways than what you traditionally, think about when you think about investing in your children. The retirement and the life insurance, and you got this in place, you got that in place. But what the question is, if you're not investing early on, what's going to happen when that child gets access to that life insurance policy, gets access to everything that you were so focused on? But it's like that preparation up until that point is so important. So when I think about even just an impact-driven brand, and I think about your practice and what you do, and it's like, these are the things that we need to be instilling in our youth, as far as not pushing so hard for the degrees and things like that. Yes, the degrees are helpful, are useful, and yeah, the training is beneficial to your life. Yeah, but that shouldn't be the end all be all. And we need to figure out a way to start expressing this to our youth in a way where they're not shying away from college, but they're not thinking that this piece of paper is like the golden ticket. Because when you're Black in America, that may not be the case. More than likely, that is not the case.
Oh my gosh.
So I feel like that was an awakening for me back in 2017. You said your journey started in 2017. Like, my journey of self-discovery and realizing that these degrees and everything that I was working so hard for is not the end all be all. Because when it comes time to apply for the job, when it comes time to do that interview, and you have to show up as your African American self, it may not go in your favor. And you may be like, I have a cousin who did a program and talked about how she sent out hundreds of applications and resumes after finishing this program, and like still today has not gotten anything that aligns with that program. But the class that she was in, it was like the minority. So other people who were in that program got things almost immediately. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been like UX design or something with app development. But, it's just really interesting. And I love how you shared that piece about, just your experience with your parents and growing up, and, that support piece. Because for everyone who's watching, everyone who's listening, I truly believe that we have to get out of this mindset of thinking that 18 is like the adult switch. It's not. Even 21 is not the adult switch.
Yeah.
And, so we need to redefine what support looks like, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So moving on, what are some of the limiting... Oh, go ahead, please.
Before you move on, you touched on something that I have been having conversations about that is just, it's so important, right? Like, we have to teach our generations how to use and spend the money, how to operate with money, how to be with money. Because that's part of what I see too, is that folks have left, we've understood the concept of let's leave generational wealth, right? Let's leave generational wealth, but it doesn't become generational wealth unless the next generation knows how to use the money you leave them. If they spend it all, there is no wealth. There's no wealth for the generation. That's it. We got to teach them how to learn how to multiply that, right? It's like, yes, this is left to you. Yes, take care of the things that, that might be holding you back. in that season. Invest in something that's going to help you to move forward in your life and to become a better version of you, right? But then also invest that money so it's growing, so it's there to support you, future generations, to actually have the generational wealth. You can't just leave the money and expect that it's going to be enough. Like that, it's not. The way that it carries on is that people know what to do. They're given instructions. I always tell parents, include your kids in the process along the way. Like if you guys are going over your budget each month, have them join you, like they don't got to do it every single time, but like have them join you a few times a year so you see what's going on. The Christmas time budget, I was a kid who wrote a list of 100 things. Okay. I was going to town, but that was also back when like the commercials was popping.
Yeah.
And they were showing me everything I needed for Christmas that I didn't even know I needed. I get it. I get that they have these wish lists and things, but also show them this is how we organize, when we're buying gifts for whoever. It doesn't have to be Santa Claus, but like, Santa Claus got his own budget. But like us here in this house, things that are coming from mom and dad or whatever, like this is how we organize it. This is how we're figuring out, we want to spend. Kids got to understand that the value, right? Like they got to understand that like you don't just, go to the store and get a bunch of groceries and like that's it, the money magically appears on the card. It's like, no, this is a process. Like we've planned for how much we're getting and how this is working and so on and so forth. I just wanted to touch on that because it's such an important part.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad that you touched on that because that is what I believe that's what the real generational wealth is. The real generational wealth is the teaching, the education, and not just the traditional education. You hear education, get away from the institutional definition of education. What about the education in the home? What about doing the work on yourself as a parent so that you can be the best teacher for your children by example? So I really love that because that is something that my husband and I have been doing with our children for the last, I would say maybe couple of years, just, doing the work on ourselves, doing the work as a couple, and then having that to kind of translate into our home with our children and giving ourselves grace along the way, giving our parents grace along the way once we realize how these patterns and these narratives and these beliefs and these values have been generational, trying to, like your client, trying to prove our worth by what we buy and how we look and, just really reevaluating that. So thank you so much for expanding upon that because what I was going to say is what I tell my son when he asks about, getting a certain thing or it's not within the budget this month or whatever. I'm like, well, these are our priorities. This is not one of our priorities right now, but let's just put it, let's leave it there and we'll revisit it later. It can be that simple, but really understanding that we have to believe in our children enough that they understand or that they will understand. You just have to keep at it, but not just thinking that it's too grandiose, it's going to go over their head. Like that's not going to help. Like the programming needs to start now because we are in program and it is being reflected in our behaviors, our spending habits, all of that. So thank you so much for expanding on that. In your work with Black women, what are some of the limiting beliefs that come? Obviously, self-worth is one of the categories, but can you share with us maybe one common thing that you see amongst, all of your clients that keeps coming up and it's like, oh my gosh, like that's linked to, the systemic oppression, like that has to be linked to, this history of slavery, integration, segregation, how we were treated. Like, what's that one thing that you're like, ooh, oh my goodness, like, I think that's linked to that.
Yeah, I think the one that breaks my heart the most is when a woman says to me, it's not possible. So like we'll go over, we'll talk about, what's your vision? Like, what do you really desire out of life? And it could be all sorts of things, right? It's not just the big trips or the cars or the houses, it's even things like, oh, I want to be able to spend this much time with my family, or I want to go be able to see my sister who lives over here for a certain amount of time. And it's like, we'll do all of that. And then the big thing that comes in the way is like, well, like, it's not possible for me though, and like, And yeah, that breaks my heart. And that's definitely tied to all sorts of oppression, right? And it comes from that place of like, when we broke the rules, right, we were punished for that. When we, stepped outside of the box, we were punished for that. When we thought or believed too big, we were punished for that. And that is something that, again, generationally has been passed down. And that's something that, like, it takes work to break that. Right? Like it takes work to really crush that belief of the limits that we put on ourselves. I find that especially Black women, we get in our own way. Like, we're going to be the first ones to tell ourselves no. We won't let somebody else tell us no first. And it's protection, right? It's from hearing it so many times, from being told you're not worthy of something, you don't deserve it. And so we're like, okay, well, they're going to tell me that. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell myself no first. But I'm always like, I feel like the thing that I tell my clients, my friends, whoever, I'm like, don't you dare tell yourself no. Let them tell you no. Like, always shoot your shot. Don't be the one to gatekeep your own opportunity. Like, you're like so much farther than you think you are. And I know no other people who fight as hard as we do, right? Like, when we truly want something, like, we're gonna go all out, right? And that belief itself, like, I keep this sign on my desk that says, like, all things are possible if you believe, right? And so I keep that here because, like, yeah, that's the thing that I hear the most. And something I actually got from my trip to Ghana, right? And I think this is so important, is that, like, when we talk about slavery, we talk about the boat trip, right? Here in America, I feel like that's the biggest thing we talk about. We came on the boats. If you survived the boats, then you had to survive, the enslavement itself. What I learned when I visited the slave dungeons and went to the castles and stuff, and 2 of them in Ghana, is that it started before that, right? Before they got on the boat, they had to survive in the dungeons for anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months. You're not bathing. You're not really getting any sunlight. There's like hundreds of people to one small space. Like, there's that. You had to survive that. Before you survived that, you had to walk for miles and barefoot. Like, they're not coming like along these roads, like, people were not just coming from Ghana. They're coming from multiple countries in Africa to these castles in Ghana. Can you imagine walking for like hundreds, thousands of miles, right? You had to survive that. And so when I think about where we are now, of course, I'm so grateful just for being here. Right? You are your ancestors' wildest dreams. But also, it's like they fought each and every level. For you to be here, somebody had to fight each and every bit of oppression of everything, right? And so if they could fight that hard, if each of our generations before us could fight that hard, we gotta fight hard for our dreams. We gotta fight hard for the lives that we want. We gotta stop accepting what's just been given to us. And so I
love that. I love that. I love that you touched on that. Just fighting in every capacity. Our ancestors and what they did for us to be here today. That was one form of fighting, right? What we have to realize, and this is something that, I have recently discovered, I'm still exploring and dissecting, but slavery looked one way in this period of time. We should be so grateful to be where we are today and to not have had to endure what our ancestors did. But make no mistake, slavery has only transformed today. And the tactics and the strategies and the way that our ancestors had to go about making the change that brought us here today, we have to think about ourselves for the next generation, what it's going to take for us today as far as strategy to fight like our ancestors did for the next generation. So slavery, the average person is like, what are you talking about? Like slavery was abolished. But when you look at the mass incarceration, when you look at the private prison, the pipeline from elementary school to prison, the tactics and the strategy that has been used. So without going into that so deeply, what I'm basically saying is this is what our ancestors had to do for us to be where we are today. What does it look like for us to fight like our ancestors fought? Yes, protesting is one way, but yet doing the inner work is another way. Getting your money in order is another way. Stepping into entrepreneurship is another way. All of these things that we talk about that really encompasses what it's going to take to actually fight. Like fighting, just like I said, trauma takes many forms. Fighting can take many forms. Your economic empowerment as a Black woman, as a Black person in America, that can be a form of fighting as well. So, but the question is like, if that's the case, why isn't everybody doing it? Listen, what has been done to us is a mind fuck. Okay. And then when you think about the power of the subconscious mind, the power of patterns, epigenetics, just generational and ancestral healing that is required, that can be your form of protest as well. So what does it look like for us to shift our mindset and really become liberated as individuals in the Black community, but also as a community? That looks like what we're sitting here talking about today: getting your finances in order, getting the support that you need, getting, the coaching that you need if you want to start a business, or if you have a business and your structures, your infrastructure is falling apart, or you never even really built the infrastructure for your business so that you can actually see success. You know what I mean? Same thing with the budget, with money, with the budget. It's like, what structure is actually in place to ensure your success? It goes for money, it goes for business, it goes for mindset. So when we talk about like the stereotypes when it comes to, mindset and mental health in the Black community, it's like, we have to get beyond that, y'all. We have to realize that the stereotypes is not where it's at. Don't fall into that indoctrination. Get the support that you need. Get your shit in order, okay? And along the way, give yourself grace, because we're all just trying to figure this thing out called life. But the great thing about it is we have each other, and all of us have skill sets, experience, abilities that we should be helping one another with. So oh my goodness, we are going over. So we're going to wrap this thing up. Oh my goodness, Taryn, I could talk to you all day.
All day, girl.
But literally, I am skipping past like 5 questions here, and I'm just going to say, wrap it up.
Sounds like we got to do a part 2.
We're going to have to do a part 2, y'all, because this is getting so good. Please share with everyone where they can find you, how they can work with you, what do you have going on. We're going to put all the links in the show notes below, but please share. I'll say this, before you share that, can you just leave us with one nugget before we close out that you would give to our listeners, our viewers, as it relates to mindset and money from the Black woman's perspective?
I love that. I mean, you said one of the first things I always tell people, which is to give yourself grace. The more we beat ourselves up over our past financial situations, the more we stay stuck. So the biggest thing is that just know that you can tackle one thing at a time when it comes to your money. The thing I love about finance is that it builds on each other. So, for me, it started with credit. I had to get my credit together. But as I did that, I got into, budgeting. I got into debt payoff and all of that stuff, right? I got into investing. Doing one thing opens the door for it all. So figure out the thing that you're just like, okay, if I could get a handle on this with my finances, like I'm going to feel like I'm slaying the game, then start there. That's the thing that you want to start with. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And the other, I guess the second part, like kind of like the sub part to that, is like, if you're somebody who knows you need accountability, that's exactly what we do as financial coaches. Don't be afraid to hire the help that you need. It's going to help you to get there faster. So yeah, but I would say tackle the one thing that you feel like is really going to make you feel like you're making progress. Start there.
Thank you so very much, Taryn. We appreciate you so much for being here today. And again, before we close out, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on, how they can connect with you, and we'll wrap up.
Yay, that sounds great. So I like to hang out on Instagram the most, and you can find me there at Hey T Money Honey, HeyTmoneyHoney. So that is me. Also Hey T Money Honey on TikTok. I do make videos there too. So that would be the main place to hang out. I have a free Facebook group. You can get into that also through one of those things. My website is manifestmoneyhoney.com. And you can connect with me there. I do have private coaching, group coaching. I have like a mastermind. And then I enjoyed Ghana so much, and I'm announcing this here, that we are putting together a retreat to Ghana. So if that is something that you are interested in, you want to go back, it's going to be holistic wellness experience. So we're going to do some money stuff, but we're also going to work on health. So your body, mindset, it's going to be a beautiful thing. So yeah.
First here on the Impact Driven Brands series.
See, I had to give you folks a little. So yeah, so you can connect with me at those places.
Thank you so much, Taryn. Make sure you guys check out the links, check out the Facebook group, follow Taryn on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. So now I'm going to have to re-download TikTok because I want to see what's going on TikTok, considering posting on TikTok. Again, I started a while back and then I stopped. So I'll probably add that, to the list. But yeah, thank you so much, Taryn, for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and just thank you for the work that you do that is transforming lives, transforming individuals within our community, but also our community as a whole. I truly appreciate your time. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will catch you on the next episode.
All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. Please like, subscribe, share with the people you care about, and leave a review. I'll catch you in the next one.